Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm so excited to have you here with us or with me. We've known each other for, gosh, what, 9, 10 years now. And it's just really awesome to be able to connect with you and share your message and your story with people. I'm sure that everyone would love to hear how you met, Treb and how all that happened for you. So if you'd like to share with us, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me around too. I've enjoyed our friendship for 10 years and to 10 and 20 and 50 and 100 more, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you. So I met Treb long time ago. I've been channeling publicly for 10 years and I worked with Treb for a couple before that. So I probably met him right around 2008. When I connected with him, it was from a series of long meditations. But I want to back up and kind of give you a fuller picture of how I got to meditating. A long time ago, when I was 19, I had my son Jeremy, and he had some issues with his health, some pretty severe ones that didn't really manifest fully into the way that I would see it and know that those problems were long term and huge until he was about two.
Cool.
And when he got to be about two, the doctors explained all the things that were happening and what we would expect. And at that point, it was a devastating blow to the heart and mind of myself and his mom. And the situation just kind of went where it's like, this is your new reality. This is your son's new reality. And any of the people who are watching who might have kids could understand that when you have a kid, it's the first person that you learn to love more than yourself. Just beyond a measurable sense of love, there's this human being that's just more than what you are. And that's the first time it happened for me. I was a bit of a selfish person, especially then. Um, so this happened. All of our hearts are broke, and just live life through there. And a few years later, after I got into a car accident, I was put on pain medicine from the doctors, and that rolled out into a 9-year extensive drug addiction. Pain medicines weren't enough. The doctors saw me using them earlier and more than I should and kicked me out. And I couldn't stop at that point. I was physically dependent. Without it, I would get sick.
Sure.
It's like people who might not have used opiates, it's like the flu times 20 when you're coming off of those pills. So I ended up going to the streets and buying people who I knew had prescriptions.
Right.
And when those became hard because the longer I went, the more I bought, and the more other people would buy because it was becoming more popular, then I would switch for heroin. And heroin was cheap and easily available. And then when you're in drug houses, there tends to be every other drug around, so meth and cocaine and whatever else was there.
Yeah.
Do. Yeah.
Right.
And it was
I share the same story, not exactly, but, I also got addicted to opiates. I had a doctor prescribing them to me, so I know what you're talking about. I know how hard that is to go through that.
Yeah, you're one of those people who genuinely understands how hard it is to go from taking the pain meds to all of a sudden being done, whether it's by your own choice or the prescriptions run out. That's a physical and mental and emotional pain,
Yes.
and it's devastating.
It is. It's the hardest thing that I went through myself. I was in drug court, so yeah, I know, because I'm actually in a lawsuit right now. A huge settlement was, is for, which you could probably be a part of that. If you had a doctor prescribing you Oxycontin like I did, yeah, huge settlement.
Yeah, they're doing that with the medicine that I was on after I started getting better. I was taking, after I decided to stop, I went to the methadone clinic, and that made it worse, like a lot worse. Methadone way heavier
Yeah.
than the Oxycontin and methadone, or the morphine that I was taking from before.
Mm.
So to get off that, I actually had to go to a hospital for 5 days, and because I was on such a high dose of methadone, like at 180 milligrams,
Uh,
they had to make me go down to 60 and then go to the hospital, because if it was above that, I could have got real sick, and they weren't equipped to deal with that. But they put me on a medication called Suboxone, and that was a medicine
awesome.
that also has a lawsuit. So yeah,
It has a loss. That one has a lawsuit. Is that what you said?
yeah, it does.
Oh,
It ended it ended this year on the 20th of December, or last year, the 20th of December, to get your claims in. But I did. I got my claims in there, so we'll see how that works out.
Suboxone is actually how I got off of the opiates. You know,
It's
it
the
worked pretty
only
good for
thing
me. Yeah. So
yeah,
what's the lawsuit for? Do you know?
because they were doing the prescription, and they weren't, like, after 7 years of a prescription that's new to the market, they have to give the recipe away to the public
Yeah.
so that other pharmacy companies can make generic forms.
Right.
They held theirs for like 14 years past that time. So when I was buying it, I had to buy it cash because I didn't have insurance. And sometimes it was up to like $450 a month,
Oh my
just to get
goodness.
that medicine right. So that's part of it, and also it caused a lot of people dental issues. So there was two separate things in there. So yeah, that was one that I joined into, and that was at the end of my stage. And then after that, actually, even during the methadone clinic, I first went there to kind of like make my addiction be cheaper and more manageable,
Mhm.
because I'm going to a place getting doctor prescribed medical pharmaceutical grade stuff. So I
Right.
knew what was in it. I
Right.
wasn't going to get bad or bunk stuff. I knew that it was only going to be $60 a week instead of a couple $100 a day.
Right.
And then, to be able to do that made it easier in my whole life and kept me out of the drug houses.
Yeah.
So at first, when I went there, I just did it to manage my addiction. I was buying extra methadone from other patients there,
Mhm.
because even though they gave me 180 milligrams, I was still taking like 300 in some days to get high. So I mean, I was on this huge, massive dose,
Sure.
uh, and eventually, I was like actually starting to feel better, even though I was still on the drugs, even though I was still doing it. I was away from the drug life, the
Right.
drug lifestyle, because I was going into like houses that sold crack and the pain pills. So
Wow.
we've got like gang members there that have guns, and walking in, the first thing they're like, hey, mother effer, get over there,
Mm.
walk out of this room right now and go to your guy and get out of here. I want you out in 2 minutes,
Wow.
and these guys are gangsters. And I put myself in those positions all the time, because that's what you do when you're addicted to drugs. You do the dumbest shit you can.
Right. Just to get it. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll do anything, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I stole shit from my family members
Mm.
when I was doing that, and my family and I are very close. So
Yeah.
it definitely a huge part of my life that disconnected me from myself and from, I don't say my soul, because you can't really, but it felt like that. It felt like everything that was more and better about me was gone
Mm.
for the times I really got deep. And I even had a friend overdose, uh, 25 years old, one of my best friends in the world. Me and him were partying. And that night, I ended up going to jail, and he ended up overdosing and dying. 25 years old, best friend. I got a tattoo of his name on my chest, because when he died, it was like he was one of my greatest friends then.
Yeah.
And
Was it from heroin he overdosed?
yes, he actually heroin and methadone. He also had meth or cocaine in his system. He
Wow.
was a gangster. He was a real gangster. Like,
Yeah.
he sold dope, and he had tons of money. Everyone in the place bought from him, but he was actually a friend of mine well before either of us got into drugs or
Yeah.
gangs.
Right.
So
Wow.
like this guy was one of my great friends, and when he died, it was just like, most people are like, oh my God, you're using drugs with your friend, and that same night they died.
Yeah,
That would make you get off, but it actually made me worse for 3 years.
I'm sure.
Uh, the pain and the feeling of loss just sent me into deeper use. So it was actually really terrible. But back to the methadone clinic, after I start getting away from the street life and away from the drug dealers and the crack houses and the meth labs where I'm going to buy various drugs, mostly pills, but if they didn't have it, whatever you got.
Mm,
Um, Finally, I started feeling a little better.
mm,
And eventually, after I stopped buying other people's doses, I started getting serious about, hey, it's time to get this done. I
right,
need to be off of this.
right.
I have to go there every day. Eventually, I had to only go once every 2 weeks because I kept dropping clean. I wasn't using any other drugs.
Mm,
And eventually, I'm just like, I've got to stop going here. At that time, my ex-wife, my wife then,
mm,
was also going, but she was going every day. So even if I was doing good, she was still smoking pot, which was against the rules. So she had to go there
mm,
every day.
mm.
So it was too much, 30 miles round trips in 3-4 foot of snow. It was just too much.
Wow.
We live in Michigan, so it snows a lot here.
Right.
Um, so I'm done and I'm tired of it, and I find out that I've got to go through the Suboxone thing to do it. And then finally I'm done with everything. And then once I get to that point, like a month of being pretty sick on and off and emotionally a wreck, finally I started feeling better about general things like life.
Yeah.
I'd go outside and I'd see sunshine and trees, and I'd be like, man, this is beautiful. And after a couple months of this, I actually thought to myself, when was the last time, unless you were on mushrooms, that you went outside and appreciated the beauty of what was around you? Never.
You know,
Never.
when I had my awakening experiences, when, because Bear, I take him to the park every day, we'd go, that was like the highlight of our day. And I experienced the same thing. And I think it's from my awakening experience, in 2011. Your connection with nature just changes, and you like, you're just, it's beautiful, you start to appreciate the trees and the love for all the birds, just nature, it's just so beautiful.
Well, you just nailed it. It's because you feel it when you're out there. You feel the
Yeah.
love. You feel, even if you, like, for me, I always liked animals, but my relationship with animals was more like, well, it's a pet, whatever.
Yeah.
It's sad when they die. It's cool to be around them, but not really a deep, deep sense of love.
Right.
At that point, I'm loving my dogs. I'm loving the birds, the trees. Everything was just amazing.
Yeah.
And that sense is something that you just can't describe, even for people who've lived like that their whole lives. Just to not go have any care about anything like that, to just loving, is just weird. It was a whole different life. It was like I took my 19-year-old brain and started developing it from there,
Right.
because I had suppressed it for that long, and it was wonderful. And my parents were religious. My mom, especially, church was a big thing when we were kids. Always going to church, and God, 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 Jesus, 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 and
Yeah.
that's, okay, that's fine. But when I was 13 or 14, I got kicked out because I was a bad kid. I was hanging out with gang people and stuff at that time too. The same guy, like my buddy who died, and
Yeah.
my own friends. So at that point, I was just like, this is stupid. Why am I coming to this place where every time I ask a question, they give me some unsatisfying bullshit answer that ends with because God said so, or because the Bible said so, or because Jesus?
Right.
It's like, no, no, these are hard thought, deep questions of all of these
Topics.
things.
Yeah.
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 It, inconsistencies at the least.
Right.
Yeah. And just, it was horrible. So I just left church, but I always felt that there probably was something more than us, you know?
Sure.
And then when I get to this stage after the drugs, I knew something was there. And I
Mhm.
had to figure out what it was, you know, what religion has it right is the type of thought that I had, because, you know,
Yeah.
Christianity wasn't doing it for me. And
Right.
there's got to be something out there that's real.
Sure.
And at that time, I went, I had always liked paranormal stuff like UFOs and Bigfoots and ghosts. Me and my friends, you know, if you grew up in the 80s, you know about that stuff, like the unsolved mysteries and,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I grew up with family that was very spiritual. My grandmother's a psychic, and she was a palm reader back when I was a little girl. So I grew up around a bunch of spiritual people that, you know, experience all kinds of different things, you know. So yeah,
yes.
part of my life.
So you had exposure at a young age. So you had an idea of how to get there right off the bat.
And I think that's probably why I even had that experience with my client, because I was aware of that happening for other people. My mother was a Reiki, you know, healer. And so she talked about just speaking with guides and, you know, stuff like that. But I had no desire, you know, and then that just happened, which I was so blessed. I mean, oh, it was so amazing. So yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to get the exposure that we have as kids versus what we have as adults.
Yeah.
I mean, you were talking about this before we came on. You know, it really does affect the way that you see life and stuff, the way that
Everything.
you deal with life, the personality that you are. So we're
Totally.
lucky to have that for sure.
Yeah. I remember when I was in high school and I went to visit my grandmother, and she was drawing UFOs and aliens. And I was like, all right. I wasn't really into it, you know, but okay, cool, you know. But yeah, now, of course, having these awakening experiences, you know, is connected to UFOs and extraterrestrials, you know. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
that seems to be the trend lately, with a lot of people who are just starting their journey in the last year or two, maybe three. A
Yeah.
lot of people are getting it from the ET consciousness versus where other people, you know, back 20 years ago, they were connecting with angels or spirits.
Right.
Um, so it's nice to see that people are opening themselves up. I can almost guarantee that almost every consciousness that's ever been psychically connected to from the beginning of history till now has to do with either extra dimensional beings, which are like extraterrestrials in higher dimensions,
Okay.
or those spirits of people and humans who have died and passed, that were there to help guide them or something. So,
Right. What is the difference, Rob, between extra dimensional and interdimensional, or I mean, yeah.
extra dimensional implies that entities are outside of your dimension. Like
Okay.
extra means more than. So
Okay.
the extra dimensional means more than just this dimension. While interdimensional requires that an extra dimensional is present because the interdimensional is going in between dimensions. So extraterrestrials versus extra dimensionals are also something a lot of people don't really comprehend the difference. And the
Yeah.
extraterrestrials are just those beings that live off planet that don't live on Earth. So you can have an extraterrestrial that's an extra dimensional, but not all extra dimensionals are extraterrestrials because some don't live on planets. Some live between dimensions when they're not inside of a body. Like when we die, we go into that place that's between this dimension and the next until
Uh,
we plan our next life. A lot of beings that we connect to are also in between those dimensions.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems very confusing, but yeah, it seems like so extra dimensional kind of also means multi-dimensional, like we're multi-dimensional beings, right? Is that kind of
It can. Sometimes extra dimensionals are just from one dimension, but they're outside of our own dimension, so we call them extra dimensional. Um, but there are a lot of multi-dimensional beings too that exist. Humans are kind of unique. And I know I it's a pet peeve of mine when people are like, "Oh, Earth is just like the most important place in the universe." It is to us because we're living here and because we're experiencing it. But we're just a speck of dirt in a big pile of sand. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're literally just one out of a bunch.
And we're
And
babies.
yes,
And we're babies at that.
yeah, exactly. We're like infants in the evolution of that consciousness.
Right.
But I think the thing that makes Earth the most kind of unique as far as other races coming to see us
Yeah.
doesn't have to do with all the things that a lot of people talk about it being, but it's because we have a very unique past. We evolved normally, like every other being in the universe does, and then we had other races coming to mess with our DNA, which also happens more than it should, but not to every race. Some races naturally evolve without intervention, but once the first manipulation happened, a bunch of other races came, and each race kept trying to change, alter, or add to our DNA till eventually 7 major changes in our DNA happened with 12 different DNAs, and it created the now version of human. That's also what gives us our extra dimensionality, or not extra dimensionality, our multidimensionality.
Mm.
It gives us the fourth, fifth, and sixth density versions of ourselves, but it also gives us that spectrum that's very unique. Treb and Aridif always say humans have a unique quality. You can go and murder someone in cold blood, like mafia people.
Sure.
That's their job. They don't have emotions attached to killing someone.
Yeah.
They can go do that in cold blood without caring, and then come home to their child and love that child with everything that they have,
Yeah.
with pure love, with unconditional love. There's
Bizarre.
not planets that you can get all of that in one trip.
Yeah. So bizarre. That is just so bizarre that, yeah, I remember, hearing that before, that we're unique in that way. The range of emotion that we experience because of all the different DNAs of extraterrestrials, right?
Yeah, emotion and vibration in general. Like we can have really great people who are loving and open, and also psychopathic, sociopathic murderers
Yeah.
that all live on one planet. And that happens, but it's rare. That part is actually a rare part of humans. And you mix that with also being multidimensional, and that puts us in like the third percentile in our galaxy. Like only 3% of all of the galaxy has the capacity to have both of those things happening at once. So we are kind of unique, but 3% of all the races in the galaxy is still a lot of races altogether. We have millions of different races in this galaxy alone. And some of them are, well, millions of third density or higher races. We have billions, trillions, I mean, we have trillions of second density life just on Earth. So
Right.
imagine that times hundreds of millions of planets. So that energy does kind of make us unique that way. Sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so okay, so if Ardif or Treb were to come to our planet and visit you, would they be as solid as they are? Because they're not in our dimension. They're in fifth and sixth, right?
Yeah, fifth and sixth density, which would be sixth and seventh dimensional. Yeah, they're not in
So would
our
they be
reality.
solid? Would they look solid if they were to come visit you?
If they came to Earth and stood right next to you, you
Yeah.
wouldn't know it unless you have intuition, intuitive nature, psychic ability, or are a sensitive energy feeler, like an empath.
Right.
Then you could feel that.
Okay.
The way that they explain is like the dimension that we're in, the highest form of energy that we're aware of is light, right? That's like the top, fastest, most explosive thing.
Yeah.
And the least dense thing. So their bottom of the fourth density is just above where light would be in vibration. So to us, it would be so unphysical, we would barely be able to see it.
Wow.
Then again, with the fourth and fifth, the highest form of light in the fourth would be uh, just below the lowest, most dense object in that fifth density, and the same with six. And then after six, there's no physical reality. It's just non-physical consciousness.
Right. Regardless, anywhere, right? Like if those higher, consciousness beings they can manifest themselves into a physical body if they wanted to, or no?
Yes, it depends on the race, and it depends on their beliefs. It depends on their abilities.
Right.
But there are many races who have done just that. They physically interact with humans, but
Mhm.
they're still multidimensional beings. And when these extra dimensional beings come to Earth and physicate, what happens is that they divide their consciousness. So, like a fifth density being is way bigger in their consciousness than humans,
Sure.
even though we're only putting 15 or 20% of the consciousness as a human, like 20 highly evolved humans, and the rest is in our higher self. These beings are putting in, 50% or sometimes 60%, and Aridif at sixth density, like 95%.
Yeah.
So they have way more consciousness available. So
Yeah.
that just like we can meditate and see astral projections or experience other realms,
Yeah.
these beings can separate their consciousness and then create through intention alone or through internal technology or sometimes external technology, create a physical avatar or a physical body and then put their consciousness into that body. And that's how a sixth density being like Alpha Draconian or like Denebian, like Aridif's race,
Yeah.
actually can go in Earth and interact physically with humans. If they were in their own bodies, we wouldn't see them.
Right.
And the thing
Okay.
about that is too is that the sixth density consciousness, their bodies are actually just as physical to each other as ours is to each other. Like you can touch another human, and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" You feel
Right.
that in.
Yeah.
They're just like that with each other, but because their physical bodies are much less physical,
Right.
that's why they're able to do what they do, like shapeshift and travel without spaceships at sixth density, or they can manifest something out of nothing. Uh, that's why they're limited less in the experience. And time, too, is another factor in the higher dimensions. Time isn't linear. Like we are born, then we're a kid, then we're a teenager, then a young adult, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
They can experience right before death in the first moment of their life if they wanted to, and then experience being a baby at the end of it and just jump around
Wow.
in the higher, like fifth and sixth. Fourth density, it's a break away from linear time and a slow integration into that, but
Mm.
there's still a feel of linearness around it.
Right. It's so amazing. Yeah. When I think about this being that woke me up, for some reason I can't remember what her face looks like, but I clearly remember seeing her hair being like shoulder length. So if I was looking at her hair, I must have seen her face, but I cannot, I've never remembered I never recalled seeing her face, and she was very thin, like white, I would say white, not like a gray, she wasn't solid, but she backs further into the bathroom and out comes this huge transparent sphere with static on both sides of it. Obviously that was her craft, and it comes right up to the side of my bed. And at some point it gets super small and then elongates and just silently goes through my ceiling, and it's just like, wow, like she must be high up there then, right? To be able to do all that. I mean,
Yeah, there's a good chance she's fifth or sixth density. A fourth density being could do that if they're in the mid to late end of fourth density. But it's more likely probably a fifth or sixth density for sure.
yeah. And probably another aspect of myself, like you said, I would think that a being's not going to do that to someone that's just nobody to them, right?
Yeah, I mean, it does happen once in a while where a being will just be, you know, through the astral realm, they'll be going and then bump into a human who has a specific vibration or like a big energy or psychic energy that's very big, and they'll be like, oh, this is cool, and then just go in and like, hey, you want to hang out, or hey, you know, can you see me? So it does happen. It's just not nearly as likely as it being a being that's connected to you, because the astral realm is basically a higher dimension itself. And
Yeah.
in the higher dimensions, you know, they have all of this universe to play with. So to find one specific human, you actually would have to work really hard to create a situation where it's an accident to bump into a human,
Wow.
as where when intentionally connecting with a human would be much easier.
I mean, how is it that, back, around that time that I met you, I went to sleep, just thinking how wonderful it would be to fly on a craft. And I was heard because I went to sleep and I was pulled into, my astral body, right? But these beings pulled me. I mean, Art told me last time in my session that these beings pulled me into their craft, and it felt very real. It felt like I was in my body because I even got sensations. I got goosebumps on my arms. So
Mm-hmm.
what is that? I mean, what does that mean? That is just so weird to me. Like, why
Yeah,
is that happening now?
absolutely. What happened is exactly how you think it is. It's the call that you made. They
Wow.
heard your call. The goose pimple thing, that sounds very physical, but a lot of the time, people who are well adjusted in their psychic abilities, even if they don't know how to use it, but if they're living higher in their higher chakras
Hmm.
more than their lower chakras, then they tend to have those more direct experiences in the astral state. For me, I can see beautifully in the astral state. Like when I meditate and go out of body, when I'm hanging out with Treb, I can see everything beautifully. I can touch things and feel them. You know, I can hear everything. It's one sense that's mostly out of whack tends to be the smell. But I have heard a lot of people say that they can't feel like with their touch, or they can't hear anything. They can see, or that they can't see, but they can hear, feel, touch, etc. So I think a lot of people bring the senses out of that. So when that happened, you felt the goosebumps. So were you missing any of your other senses, to your knowledge?
So I went to sleep like every night, and I woke up. Well, I didn't wake up. I found myself in this oval room with three beings, that were standing like in front of me. And I was sitting, they were sitting all along this oval room and a window all as well. And so I'm sitting here and I'm looking out into space, and there's three beings standing there. I'm sure there was conversation, but I don't remember any conversation with them. I just remember seeing them and then being, in this oval room and then looking out into space and then just looking into space. And there was this huge explosion in space. And then just this mothership appeared after the explosion, like the biggest thing I've ever seen, like Star Wars lights all over it.
Oh,
And and then that's when I got goosebumps. I felt goosebumps on my arms. So when I went to go look down at my arms and rub them is when I woke up. But I was like, oh my God, I was just on a spacecraft. Like, that was not a dream. Like, it was like, when you wake up, you're groggy. No, 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 no. I wasn't groggy at all. I was like, oh my God, I was just like so full of energy. I could not believe what I just experienced.
that's crazy, because that's the beauty that shows our multidimensionality. You see this gigantic spaceship and you get the goose pimples, right?
Yeah.
That proves to you, just like if you see one in real life, even when we see, you know, little ships that are way distant that might or might not be UFO, that
Yeah.
could be maybe just something, you know, like a satellite way high, people get excited or some people get scared.
Right.
That instant reaction is built into our DNA, and our DNA is in all dimensions. So
Right.
we wouldn't get that type of reaction in our astral body unless our DNA was connected to the astral body. So I think that's a beautiful example to show the instantaneous nature of responsiveness to that external stimulus that gave you the goosebumps, because it strengthens and solidifies that multi-dimensional DNA even more.
Yeah, it was nuts, you know. And then like I'd be driving and like spirit, I would literally hear, take a photo of the sky, take a photo of the sky. And I'm like, I'm driving. No, take a photo of the sky. Okay, I don't see anything in the sky, but I take a photo of the sky, and what do you know? There's tons of UFOs in the photo. You know, it was just, I was walking Bear one time and I got another urge to take a photo of the sky. Okay, I don't see anything in the sky, but I take a photo, and there's this like boomerang, like Batmobile looking spacecraft in the sky. It was like back to back, all these, you know, experiences happening. The light, there's this light on in my pictures on my couch, there's this light there. And I didn't see, no, I didn't take these pictures because I saw the light. No, I was just taking pictures of my house and the light appeared in the photo. Also another picture, same thing. I was taking a picture of my kitchen and there's these two really bright lights on the corner of the stove and the microwave. So bizarre.
That's great. No, that proves to you too how much consciousness that you have around you, how many entities that you have as guides or just beings who like to hang out with the earth humans they love, you know.
But this
That's
was so
amazing.
long ago, and it's like, why isn't this happening now anymore? You know, why do you think it's not happening anymore?
I don't know. It can be a lot of things. The earth is very dense right now, like unbelievably dense. Also, we're at the last year of the shifting vibration.
Mhm.
There's a cycle that happens in consciousness. First of all, consciousness evolves, right? So it starts at a point and ends at a point, and sometimes doesn't make it all the way through. So you start in first density, second, third.
Yeah.
Right now, we're going through our third to fourth density change. 2012 was like the exact experience, the 2012 that everyone made a fuss about.
Mm.
That was actually a fourth density evolution. But it's never just like, hey, this all happens at once, or hey, it's forced to happen, or hey, this just comes and goes. It's a cycle and it's an energy that moves around through actual time space.
Hmm.
And when it comes, there's a gigantic energy that comes in a sphere, and it's a cycle. So it takes 9 years to get to the center point, which is the concentrated part, and then another 9 years to leave the system. So right now, if you look at 2012, 9 years before was 2012, so it was like 2004,
Uh-huh.
and then 9 years after 2021.
Oh, okay.
So this is a really huge and important time for energy, but it's also at its most dense because we're at the end of acceleration of consciousness.
Hmm.
With acceleration, now we're going to still grow, we're still going to evolve.
Yeah.
That's a natural thing, it just happens everywhere. But the
Right.
part that helps boost it from one stage to the next, we're at the end of that now. So that I've been telling people, from what Aridif and Treb have said, buckle up. This year, as crazy as it's been, at the end of it, will
Yeah.
either give us a lot of answers collectively, or it will give us the information to need to know what answers we need and what we don't. And a lot of the things that humans want to know are sometimes the ones we don't really need to know to grow and to experience ourselves. But it will also show us about ourselves and about all those things in the collective that we have such a hard time with: wars, governments, children in schooling, the way we teach them, just every system that you can think of that's broken or
Right.
that's caused harm to people.
Hmm.
It gets a big spotlight on it, and that's what's been happening. But 2021, that's the year of the brightest spotlight. So it's chaotic and it's crazy, but it's needed and it's
Exciting.
going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's exciting at the same time. I agree. And it seems like there's just this wave of new people coming into this and this information too, you know, which is really cool. You know, it's cool to see so many people, you know, exploring, you know, all these things, you know, and it's just like, it feels like it's interesting that you said that because it feels like, it kind of feels like it was back then when when I first met you, like the excitement of all these people, the consciousness getting more aware, you know, and evolved about all these different topics.
Yeah, this year has been by far the year where more people that I've met have gotten into channeling just recently than ever before. Like when I started channeling in 2010, there was like 10 channelers on YouTube, tops, at
Right.
least the ones that I knew about.
Right.
These beings have remained to do their own thing, while the rest of the earth, there's more and more and more. And by the time this last 2 or 3 years have been out, there are literally thousands of channelers on YouTube.
Wow.
So much so where someone like myself, who's been on for a decade and who has a decent following for the community standard,
Yeah.
um, you type in my name or the word channeling or ET channeling, and it's like you literally have to spell out my name and the ET whisper just to find me on YouTube anymore.
And
That's
why
that's
is
how
that?
much.
Oh,
Pardon?
because there's so many of them. Is that why?
Uh, it's a few things because there's so many because I haven't been actively uploading like every week or every month.
Okay.
Plus, some of the topics that we're talking about are on the no topic list
Sure.
for YouTube that gets you kind of cut back. Plus, the consciousness integration portions become so overloaded that the words that I use for keywords are no longer relevant because everyone's using them. So it's a whole mix of a lot of things, but a big part of it is the amount of times I upload videos. And
Okay.
like I just put out a video a few days ago, live stream when I had the time to. But
Yeah.
before that, it was almost 4 months,
Right.
and before
So,
that, it was like 8 months. So
oh wow. Okay. So the more that I noticed the more that you upload videos, the more traffic you get, the more you're seen, pretty much, or they share your videos or whatever, right?
yeah, the more that you upload, the more that you'll come to the higher ranking in the search whenever they put in something that's in your own. Like for you,
Yeah.
you've been doing the Treb books with Reptilian, so
Yeah.
Reptilian would be a code word that would associate with your channel. So if you're
Totally.
uploading once a month, and 10 people are coming in and watching all of the video
Right.
versus doing it every day and 10 people come in, it's not just more traffic, it's more interactions, and that's what they look for. It's a very weird algorithm, and they really screwed over a lot of good content creators and people in our spiritual community
Right.
from the change of their algorithm. Basically, it prefers big media places like CNN and Fox. When you type in UFOs, you're not going to
Yeah.
get UFO hunters. You're going to get Fox News and stuff.
Yeah. Which
And
sucks. Yeah.
yeah,
But at the same time, it's really cool, even though they've given us a half-assed disclosure, which we've known about for 10 years now that they're going to do this. We've known this for 10 years. So we knew that this is how it was going to be. They were going to narrate it and put threat, and, they were use the word threat constantly about it, to make it fearful. This is what I keep telling people. Don't believe it. Don't believe that this is like something to fear, because it's not. It is not to fear. At least I feel that it's not to fear any.
yeah, there are bad ETs, there are good ETs, but we've been here in our galaxy forever. We've had visitations forever. I mean, we've had wars here on Earth from extraterrestrials fighting each other. So we've been through, I mean, it's no secret that we're here in the galaxy. All the races that are really high in the technology and high in intergalactic travel, they know we're here.
Right.
If bad races really didn't want us here, we'd already be gone, right? What
Right.
would we do against technology like that as far as
Exactly.
fights? Most races achieve the level of interdimensionality through at least being cool with each other, like a planet unifying enough to get themselves out in space. So
I don't want to keep you too long. I just want to say one more thing that, I've noticed a lot of people, there's a lot of disinformation that is put out there too, to install more fear into the people. I'm not saying that abductions have not happened. They do happen, but there's part of that is the military, our own human beings that are doing that and causing so much fear. But, people, it's like, look, dude, if you eat meat, which most people do, you are part of slaughtering animals and eating them. You can't call a race evil because they're taking you in the middle of the night and using your sperm or your eggs. You know what I mean? They're not evil because they're doing that. It's just part of the way things work. And people are like, they just don't understand. Some people just don't get it. I'm like, dude, do you eat meat? I know you're not the one that's slaughtering the animal, but you are playing a part in that. And, it's all a system to support one another. So unless you say you're evil, you can't be calling them evil.
I agree. The many races who do the hybrid programs, you'll find that when they're doing them, if you have no fear in you when
Yeah.
you wake up in the ship or when you're consciously aware of some part, it's always a beautiful and great experience because you're like, whoa, what's going on? Where am I? Hey, what's going on? And they talk to you. Um, if you're fearful, then they're just trying to calm you down. But even whether you're fearful or not, there's a part of yourself, whether it's a higher self or the oversoul, whatever it is, that agrees that this can be done. And even the personality part of us in our soul,
Mhm.
that part of us had an agreement to do something bigger with our genetics before we came into our life. And that's why these entities do. And yes, there are races who are not nice to humans who
Right.
also do hybridization. But those races, you'll never know that they ever did anything to you because you'll never wake up, you'll never have scars, all of that stuff anyway.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've never experienced any abductions, as far as I can remember. I don't recall being abducted. So I don't have that kind of connection. But I do believe that I definitely have hybrid children. I mean, my grandma, going and being taken to X for Planet. I don't know if you saw that video on my channel, but while she was visiting, she explained, that she was taken to a planet with really tall gray beings. And I told you she was drawing them, when I was in high school. So it's definitely part of my family, in my family. So, but I
Mm.
just, yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's very exciting, to be part of connecting to the galaxy, and there's just all these Bible thumpers, sorry, but they're just so fearful, man. That book, man, just, it really messes things up, it really does.
Yeah, it's a dogma in any form creates resistance. We've seen it in politics, we've seen it in the world, we've seen it in ideology, we see it in religions, but even in our own community, there are people who are dogmatic and who are, this is the right thing and nothing else is right, and follow me and you'll be like God, and the same old, same old. People hook into a belief system so strongly that it becomes a part of their identity and they'll never break away from it at that point. So I get what you mean. The thing that you said is interesting too, the connections with the ETs. When you're giving them sperm, eggs, samples of DNA from your hair or skin, you really are gifting the galaxy with consciousness. And most men are programmed in a genetic way from scientists' perspective to just spread your seed, right?
Right.
So what's the deal? What's the problem with doing it galactically? And
Right.
for females, there's usually an intimate relationship with people who become aware, whether they are aware, because there are some sexual interactions that happen with hybrid programs and some just from genetics. But a
Right.
lot of the females that I've met who've actually had the sexual connections and remember those sexual connections
Best.
have,
From
yeah,
what I've heard, it's like the best.
yes, the sex is amazing from everything I've heard too. But they also feel this huge sense of love and connection to these beings that even like some of them are married women or people who are in monogamous relationships or maybe even polyamorous, but they
Right.
feel so deeply connected to these beings
Yeah.
because it's more than just, hey, I'm using your eggs up, or hey, I'm using whatever.
Yeah.
It's a connection, an energetic connection, very similar to how when I channel, how I feel with my own guides,
Mm.
just like deep connection. So I don't think it's as bad a thing as people think, but you know, if you're fearful of it or you're having bad experiences, I couldn't blame someone for feeling that way either, you know?
Right, right, totally, yeah. Yeah, it's all just very exciting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is Treb and Aridif your guides? Because you said guides. So are they your guides?
Mm,
Because I know we've got these non-physical guides as well, right?
right. Every human has like spirit guides, and then they have generic guides, and that's what Treb and Ardif call them. Spirit guides are beings who never incarnated while you're living, because as soul friends or soulmates that
Oh,
have gone through so many different lifetimes with you,
yeah.
they're like, we're gonna sit this one out, and we're just gonna be your cheerleaders, basically. We're gonna root for you. We're gonna help you with energy, and they integrate themselves into the body, not physical body, but into the chakra system in the body to help with those things. Because Earth is intense, especially for new souls who are coming from other places, like
Sure.
for the first time or for the first 10 or 15 times, and then they connect with energy to help it from being unbearable or something in that range of unbearable, and also help you with growth, like when it's time to expand the heart, the entity that works with your heart chakra will actually spend time and energy doing that. And then in the other cases, external guides, these are entities that are in your oversoul, soulmates, you've had past lives with them, they may be a future version of you, they
Mhm.
may be in the hybrid program that you're in.
Okay.
However, you're connected, they're present with you, they're connecting with you energetically when you desire something or when you're trying to grow. They're actually connecting with your energy, and that's Treb and Ardif for me are the external guides or the generic guides they call them. So now I use their own word on them.
Yeah, Aridif, last time I spoke to Aridif, he said, that John, this he just gave me the name John is who uh prevented that fatal car accident that I would have gotten into. And that John no longer, John's pretty much graduated from Earth. And I'm like, why can't I graduate from Earth? Let me come with John and graduate from Earth. So I guess he's like a guide. I don't know. But it's just like, why would we have all these guides? I just don't see how humanity are clueless. They don't have a clue that they have these guides that are there for them. So it's like, what's the point in them being there if humans don't even know they're there, you know?
Right. Well, that's the thing. You don't have to know that they're there for them to
Them to
work with
help you.
you. You know,
Right.
like people who are hugely depressed and suicidal. There are some times where people are just like, for whatever reason, I just shifted out of that
Right.
suicidalness and just stayed sad.
Okay.
And
And that's
sometimes
them.
that's the guides. A
Right.
lot of people see these guides too when they're like going into near death experiences. People say, I saw my guardian angel.
Or
I saw
Jesus.
my angel. Yeah, that's usually that.
Right. That's what I was thinking too, all these years overall, from the beginning of human history. When people would say they're seeing angels and stuff like that, it's really extraterrestrials that we're connected to. But because we have this story of angels on our planet, our Jesus, right?
Yeah, I believe that's definitely the case. Absolutely.
Jesus is an extraterrestrial.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Jesus was. See, there's a few different versions of Jesus, right? And there's actually millions of versions of Jesus, but the ones that are most impactful,
Yeah.
um, he was a hybrid from ET interactions with a human, and there was another version of them that was just a regular human. There's one that's a demigod, like an actual demigod. There's a version of him that came directly from the Christic or crystal consciousness. So there's a lot of different forms, and the reason why those forms exist is because the belief of so many. So when
Created them. We
millions of
created them, right?
Christians, pardon,
We created it, right? With through our
yeah,
consciousness.
absolutely, our collective consciousness created those versions from the beliefs. Absolutely,
Shows how powerful we are.
we are the most powerful, and we never give ourselves the credit for that because
Yeah. Because we're not taught. We have no clue.
and we're also self-deprecating, which is a huge human attribute. When you don't know that you're a creator, it's easy to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so amazing how magnificent we are. And, you know, when you are told that and shown that through spirit, and it's like you try to tell humanity this, look, I promise you, like, we're magical, we are so magnificent. And, you know, just, it's just like, it doesn't, people just don't believe it. It just, you know, I don't see anything magical or magnificent, you know, it's just sad to me, you know, it's really depressing sometimes to me. And even, I mean, I'm not different than everyone else, you know, me too. I'm like, you know, when you're surrounded around so much dense things going on, you know, it's like, why was I shown how magical we are and this magnificence of what we are, for me to just sit here and, you know, I guess the whole reason is so I can share this with people. So hopefully people can tap into that, you know, within themselves and find that magnificence that is within them, because I promise people they are, I mean, we are truly amazing, beautiful energy, you know, we're not even humans really, you know, we're just these never stop existing, you know, energy beings. And yeah.
Well, absolutely. The thing too that I believe in my own experience, people who share information with others, like you do yourself, you've got your YouTube channel, you're constantly sharing your experiences, your ideas, all of that.
Yeah.
For those people, they tend to go through the experiences that they need to help others with. So, right now, what you're going through, everything that you're going to have to learn about that and that you're emotionally, energetically going to have to push yourself through,
Mm.
that's going to be relevant for so many of the people who come to you at a later time for this. And when they need the help, you'll know how to give it to them.
Yeah, definitely. It's exciting. I can't wait to I mean, I just adore you. You know, I adore you, and I adore Treb and Rob, or Aridif and Rob. I adore all three of you guys. Yeah, you're just a beautiful person, and you've always been a beautiful person, and that's great. You know, you're the most genuine channeler that I've ever, you know, known. And you know, people that are in your position can get really big. You know, can get quite arrogant. We know a few of those that have gotten arrogant and are not genuine anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's been many of them I met who started out very excited
Humble.
about life and very
Yeah.
genuine and happy to share, and ended up letting stuff go to their heads. Absolutely. Yeah, it's sad, but it is what it is. It's their journey, you know.
Right.
You can't hang on to people who don't want to be hung on to, who are out of the vibration of yourself at that moment too. So
Yeah.
just like relationships, right? Yeah, marriages end, you know.
Right. Yeah.
That happens too, and all the time in this community. You know, it happened to me in my spiritual journey. My spiritual journey went this way. My son's mom's life went a different way.
Right.
Not bad. Not either of them are not bad, and none of them are wrong. It's just different. You know, it
Right.
doesn't match anymore, right?
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you too for the compliment, because you are a wonderful, loving human being who I've always loved so much, and you've been actually not just a dear friend, but someone who I actually just fucking love greatly because of your own heart, your own compassion for people, your own desire to help others. You've always been there for me as a friend too.
Yeah.
And it means the world. So as much as you love me and Treb and Arif, they love you because they love everybody. But
Right.
I love you because I love you, and I
Yeah.
appreciate everything that you've done for everyone else, and sharing Treb's information through reading the books and stuff. It's been
Yeah.
amazing.
It's exciting. It's important to share the message, you know. What's better than love, you know? Nothing's
That's
better than love. So
that's absolutely it.
yeah. So um so did you wanna connect with Treb or Arvid?
Yeah, we can do that. Now let me check on something here. All right, it's approaching one.
Is it you wanna do it another day?
Pardon?
Did you want to do it another day?
We might have to, and then which I can get. You know, you've got access to me, unlike a lot of people who have to go through emails that are thousands back. But we can do that a different day, and
Okay,
then
babe.
yeah, I think because it would be nice for me to come back and say hi to everybody here too. I think if they enjoy having me around too.
Okay, awesome. That sounds great. Well, it was lovely connecting with you, and we'll see you again soon. We'll
Thank
connect.
you so much, Tasha. I love you so much, and
I love
thank
you.
you for everything you do.
I love you too, babe. Have a wonderful night.
You too.
Okay, good night.
Night.